Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to Talking Pools Podcast, Thursdays with Wayne and Steve. Glad to have you back and listening to us. Steve, welcome from the West Coast where you have no Hurricane Debbie going on. Lucky you, I guess, but you've got earthquakes, so there you go.
Yeah, we had an earthquake the other day, and I didn't even feel it, to be honest. You really got to be paying attention, or it needs to be like really calm in the house or something. But like if you're like out walking around or doing anything, basically like in the car or anything like that, like you're not feeling any of it. It has been kind of a crazy hurricane season, so I think this show we're talking about today is some hurricane stuff. It's just really wild with
it's really,
what's going on.
But I got to tell you my earthquake story. I've been around for a long time and done a lot of shows out of Long Beach and Monterey over the years, and I've gone out to California, all up and down the West Coast. While I was with Taylor and you would think 30 years of doing this, 30 plus years, I would experience an earthquake. No, you know where I did? Sitting in my office north of Baltimore, and all of a sudden I look up, and we have the Taylor's a one-story building, and my office was floor-to-ceiling windows that faced the two flagpoles. And I look up, and the flagpoles are going like this. And the first thing I thought is, flagpoles aren't supposed to look like waves, like sound waves. And then all of a sudden the hit, and I went, shit, that's an earthquake. And so a couple ladies in customer service screamed. It was like a 4.5 or something like that. But for us, that never gets anything like that. It was pretty impressive. In fact, I love the memes that came out afterwards. It was a picture of an overturned white plastic a chair that said, "I survived the earthquake of whatever it was, 2014."
Yeah, selling them on the streets like immediately right after. Like I survived the hurricane.
Yeah. So,
or I survived the earthquake. It's scary when you're in your bed, like when you're laying down, you're just like relaxing, and then everything starts to shake. That gets a little bit scary, or when you're at the house and like stuff starts to like rattle and whatnot, because then you're not sure if like things are gonna break but apparently they keep saying about the big one, but we keep getting these small ones.
Yeah, it's going to lead up to the big one day, probably.
Yeah.
So what we want to talk about, though, is the other kind of meteorologic event that's happening, at least in my side of the world, right now as we are recording this. We're actually recording this on August 9th at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, East Coast time. And the remnants of Hurricane Debbie that came up to the west side of Florida, across the Carolinas, Georgia, and on up, are hitting us right now. So we have a lot of wind out there, a lot of rain, a lot of down trees. I went out to the grocery store a little while ago, and all up and down the road, a lot of down trees. My backyard is slightly flooded because we have in the yard behind us, there's a probably like a 3-foot diameter drainage pipe that takes all of our yards kind of slope downwards. Well, when it gets clogged up with crap, branches, trees, dead animals, things like that, it backs up. And so now my chain link fence in the back is about halfway up with water. It's going down slowly, but it's filled up. We always called it Lake Joppa. That's the town that we live in, Joppa town. So Lake Joppa. When I was younger, it used to happen, and my kids were younger. I have videos someplace of my 9-year-old son swimming in our backyard, literally. Yeah, because it was 3 feet deep, but that water is just so disgusting because we have dogs, so you really don't have to go any further into that. But what I kind of wanted to talk about, and Steve, you're originally from the East Coast too, so what happens. What do you do pool wise when bad weather happens?
The mobile WaterLink Spin Touch allows pool and spa professionals the ability to test water in the field. A patented WaterLink Spin reagent disc is used with the innovative photometer to measure 10 different tests in just 60 seconds. That's right, just 60 seconds, and you'll have results displayed simultaneously on the photometer's touchscreen. That's not all. You also have the ability to send the data through Bluetooth into a smartphone or a tablet device. The photometer can measure free chlorine, bromine, total chlorine, combined chlorine, pH, alkalinity, hardness, cyanuric acid, copper, iron, phosphate, borate, biguanide shock, and salt. The water analysis can be proactive since they are able to measure all of these important tests and recommend correct procedures to fix their water chemistry issues when using our WaterLink Solutions Pro software program. It allows pool and spa analysts the best way to achieve precise results. So simple, anyone can use it. This is the most advanced system for precise use of wet chemistry methods ever produced. Pool and spa analysts can achieve precision without time-consuming tests or cleanup procedures. This groundbreaking analysis system is so simple, no vials to fill, no prep time, no guessing. To learn more about this innovative lab, visit www.waterlinkspintouch.com. Again, www.waterlinkspintouch.com.
Happens? What do you do pool wise when bad weather happens? And the first thing is, I think, is that, don't get in the pool during a storm or bad weather. I mean, that's common sense. Just leave it alone. Your safety is more important, but it's the aftermath that I kind of think that's the problem. Steve, are there any kind of steps that you and your staff do as far as like bad weather, or do you remember bad weather? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the one thing that I don't miss about the East Coast, right? But yes, when it the biggest problem pools, I would say, are in the ones that are in sloped wooded areas where you're going to get, now the pool is brown and you can't see, you can't really see the bottom, so you have to, take the approach of, are we going to spend a bunch of money on chemicals and taking this out and then finding out that there's 3 feet of mud in the bottom of the pool? I've also had it happen where we're like, okay, we're going to drain this, and we drop in a pump, and then, the pump starts pulling up clay or whatever it is in there, so you run into issues. But now we're getting into more issues like, insurance claims and different things like that, because I have seen a bunch of those. And that actually happens here when we have wildfires, because wildfires will create, this is on the West Coast I'm talking, they will create some sort of landslides because there will be a fire, and then there'll be like a rain, then the later days there'll be rain, and now there's nothing to hold that back, so there winds up being these landslides, and you have these these areas here in California where people are kind of living literally on top of each other, like on the top of the hill, right? And then what winds up happening is that just kind of gives way, and now there's a bunch of stuff in the pool. As far as like with storms and stuff, though, I feel like in the last 10-15 years it's become a lot easier to not predict that, but you can actually go on the weather the Weather Channel app was my best friend on the East Coast, right? Because I would go out for my day and I would have 11-12 pools to service, and I would plan my day of like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do some office work first, and I'm going to go out late because there's going to be really bad rain in the morning, between 7 and 9. And then once it dies down at 9, then I can probably get 3 or 4 pools in. And you can see the radar and stuff. But with servicing these pools with metal poles and aluminum poles and things like that, you really have to, be aware of what's going on and be aware of your safety, in a sense of, you don't want to be servicing pools when there's thunder and lightning. Right. Basically my rule of thumb is, if there's thunder, like you're not getting out of the car. At that point, I don't want you. I don't want you in the backyard if there's thunder and lightning. And obviously during like these hurricane periods, and you're not going to be out servicing pools, but it's more of, what do you do? What happens afterwards, like you said, the aftermath of it. So I think the biggest thing for us was, there was like I think one time the worst thing that happened was someone's glass they had a glass table in the backyard that was like part of their off to this, it was like 25 feet away from the pool, and it tumbled over, and it like blew it this way, and then it shattered and it went into the pool. So we had to, drain the pool and take the glass out and stuff. Right. So that wasn't really that great. Yeah. But for the most part, like I said, I think the worst thing that's happened to us is, coming to a pool and it being totally brown with some sort of, dirt or debris at the bottom, and now you don't know what's at the bottom. It's because now it's like you're opening pools all over again. And everybody on the East Coast knows that when you're opening these pools, there could be anything down there. Exactly. It's just black water. There could be tree branches. I've seen dead deer. I've seen a bunch of different things. So it winds up becoming a problem of, cleanup. And then what do you do? Like, is this included in your service, or is this extra? And it's something that you always have to make sure that you're making it super clear before the fact of what's going on. Or once you get there, that you're taking good documentation and pictures and saying to the client, like, hey, we started the cleanup and, we're going to give you a half hour or an hour's worth of cleanup for the service visit this week. But now this is where we are. And the pool still needs X amount of hours of us taking care of it, so it's going to be an extra hour or 2 hours or whatever it may be. And you just want to be very clear. And the clearer you are, the more it's going to help you out in the long run. I have right now one of my commercial clients, it's a hotel, and they changed hands and the hotel sold. And the new buyer said, oh, the seller, who wasn't my client, the seller was actually the person who owned the hotel. He was leasing it to somebody else who was my client, right? So that client now is gone. They ran. They were like, there's so many problems here, we're out. So they sell the hotel and there's like a transitional period. So there's this like broker guy, and he like brings me on and he's like, your prices are really expensive, but we're going to keep you for now. We'll have you train our guys, this, that, and the other thing. So he said after we'd serviced the pool for a month, he was like, the seller said he's going to take care of the bills from backwards from here, And I was like, shit. As soon as he said that, I was like, now we've done work, and now he's saying, oh, they're going to pay for that. And sure as shit, Wayne, I got an email yesterday that said from the from the guy who sold the hotel, your prices are outrageous. My guy could be doing this pool for $200, 60,000 gallon commercial pool and 10,000 gallon spa on a hotel property. He's saying he could get it done for $200 a month. So basically, he told me he was going to pay, I don't know, it was like $700 or $800 out of this over $3,500 bill, And he was like, that's fair. And I didn't, we're still going through it right now, but I wanted to write him back and say, like, I'm literally paying my guys more than what you're offering to pay for the month. Forget about chemicals, forget about that, forget about any of this stuff. People don't understand, like, they're just not getting, like, how expensive the chemicals are, every time you get a case of chlorine, it's almost 40, it's $10 a gallon, so it's almost $40 for the whole thing. And then this was taking every day, it's taking 5 gallons of chlorine in the pool and 1 gallon of chlorine in the spa, because of course their automation systems aren't working, and they didn't want to fix that. But anyway, not to get off topic, but like I said, that's even in situations where you're super clear and you're like, hey, this is exactly what's going on. I'm always trying to not get myself in situations like this. But now, and it's one of those things where, like, we sent a contract out to those people. They didn't sign the contract, but they gave us verbal, hey, continue on. And then they also said, like, we have a voicemail that says, like, hey, the other owner is going to pay for everything, and then now they're going back and forth with it. But now I'm just kind of like in the middle of this situation where I really don't want to be in. And the only person who's going to get screwed in this, if everyone decides to not pay, is, and then we're going to have to decide do we take them to court? Is it worth it? I already had one of my clients this year just decided that they were just going to stop paying, and they said that they were going to sue us. And I talked to, my insurance people, and I was like, hey, this is really clean, cut and dry, and we could take this to court and win, no problem. And he was just like, he was like, I wouldn't do that unless it was like worst case scenario, or it was like a real lot of money. If you're talking about like $1,500 or something like that, which I think it was. He was like, it's actually not going to be worth your time, because he was like, it's very easy to countersue. In that sense. So it's easy for anybody who has a family member that's a lawyer, or a friend that's a lawyer. It's easy for them to say, hey, could you write me up something? And now, all of a sudden you're getting, you're just in these sticky situations. So, even when you run a good business and it's crazy that this stuff, the more you open yourself up to liability, right? The more chances of these things happening. So it's something that, I know, unfortunately happens. And,
people love to sue each other. So let's walk through a typical service scenario in a case like this. You go up to the pool. There's been a significant weather event of some kind. Okay, and your staff goes up to this pool, and the pool is brown. What would be the steps they would take in order to clean it up? to make
So
it
the first,
make
the
it good?
first, yeah, the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find out what's in the bottom of the pool. I'm gonna have them take like a leaf net, and I want to find out: is there a bunch of leaves down there? Is there a bunch
Mhm.
of dirt down there? Is there a bunch of mud or clay down there? Because if there's a bunch of leaves, then I'll just use like a Riptide or one of those
Okay.
vacuums that does a really good job of getting that up. Most of the time, the pool's going to be overflowing, and you're going to have to take out water anyway.
Yeah.
So if you can kill two birds with one stone, and you could do a vacuum to waste, if you have a
Mhm.
sand filter with a multi-port on it or a DE filter with a multi-port on it, you'll be able to vacuum to waste. And vacuuming to waste, it allows you to take water out of the pool and replace it with some fresh water, and then
Right.
also is going to take whatever dirt or debris it's picking up, it's going to go directly out the waistline. I'm not a huge fan of ever vacuuming through the system if I can help it.
Mhm.
Unless it's in waste. If it's in waste, then it's fine because you're just filling up the pump basket
Right.
and
Right. Right.
cleaning it out anyway. So I have no big deal with that. But I always tell everyone that like your filters have one job, and the job of the filter is to keep the water clear, and that's it.
Mhm.
It's not sanitizing the water, it's not taking out the bacteria or the viruses or anything like that. It has one job, and it is to keep the water free from particulates and grab those small little micron particulates and clear up the water. So I
Mhm.
don't ever want to put in like a vacuum cleaner that's attached to it, like a suction side vacuum cleaner or anything like that, because it's making the filter work harder. So if
Right.
we're vacuuming through the filter constantly, then, especially with the sand filters, you might have to, it's not uncommon to like have to backwash the pool 4 or 5 times while
Mhm.
you're vacuuming. And it's like, who wants to go to the filter and backwash the filter and for 3 to 8 minutes and then come back and vacuum again into the sand filter, So it's like most
Yeah.
guys that are pretty competent are going to have their own like deck vacuuming systems.
Mhm.
And they actually sell them. I know like there's a guy here in California, it's called Advanced Manufacturing, and he's at all the shows, and he always has all of these like cartridge filters that are on
Mhm.
top of a like self-contained system, and all you have to do is you wheel it up, it plugs into an outlet, you have an extension cord, and then boom, you're basically vacuuming to either waste, or you can vacuum right back into the pool and you grab it, with the cartridge
Mhm.
filter and whatnot. But it really just depends, what's down there. So we're going to find that out first. And then also, is it worthwhile to keep this water in there? And
Mhm.
if it is, then we start working on it. But if we're going to take a full panel test, and if that calcium hardness is over 400 or 500 or 600, and or the cyanuric acid is high or the TDS is high, then boom, let's make this easy.
Yeah. Start from
Let's drain the
scratch.
pool. And that's
Yeah.
it. Doesn't matter where I'm going, whether it be for a new client, a commercial or a residential client, a after a storm, just to see them for the first time, whatever.
Mhm.
But the first time that I'm going to these pools and you want to pick it up for service, you have to do a full panel test. And
Mhm.
you have to find out where our long range stuff is. And the long range stuff is the calcium hardness, the cyanuric acid, and the total dissolved solids. Right. And if
Right.
those are high, then boom, let's not even play around. Let's just get it drained.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's
at
a
that
no-brainer
point,
at that point.
I've had it happen where we've drained the pool down to the mud, and then you get your guys in there and they start taking garbage cans down there and they start shoveling mud into garbage cans, and then they
Mhm.
bring that up to the street. I've had
Mhm.
that happen too, but now you're getting into, thousands of dollars we're talking to fix this.
Mhm.
So now I want you to put in an insurance claim with that. So we're going to figure all that stuff out first. Obviously, you might have to backwash the filters. You might have to clean the filters. You might have to,
Mhm.
keep this pool on 24/7, no matter what. If you
Mhm.
want to clear a pool up and it's a residential pool, most residential pools are running on an 8-hour turnover, not 8-hour
Right.
turnover, but 8-hour timer, right? So it's on for eight
Right.
hours
Right.
and it's off
Mhm.
for 16. So now in 3 days period, in a 72-hour period, you're only really running one 24-hour period, because 8 times 3 is 24, right?
Right.
So if you want to clear your pool up, just put it in service mode or take the timer pins off and run it 24/7. And
Mhm.
that will, the number one question that I always get is, hey, my pool is cloudy. Why is it cloudy? And
Mhm.
with the CPO, it's hey, you have no disinfectant, right? So you have no chlorine in the pool, which is most of the time. But for me, it's filtration or water balance, right? So water
Mhm.
balance basically means that you don't have chlorine in the filter or in the pool, and then filtration means that you need to backwash your filter or clean your filter or do whatever. 90% of the time, if you work within those boundaries of stuff, it winds up working out. Now, is a clarifier in this situation going to help? Absolutely. If I have a pool where I can't see the bottom and it's all cloudy and all that stuff, like sometimes I'll add a whole pint, or I'll add like 32 ounces or whatever it is. So it really just depends. I think that it's one of the hardest things to do is, have that happen with the storms and stuff, because you get into these routines where you're able to do, maybe 13, 14, 15 stops in a day. And when you have some sort of event like this happen, it kind of just really messes up your whole game, right? Because now you have guys being at pools for 3, 4, 5 hours, and again, like, you need to be super clear with your guys, because I've had sometimes where, like, I talk to my guys and they're having an issue, and then I don't talk, like, I just assume that they've either fixed it or they've moved on, or they're, and then they'll call me like an hour and a half later and he's like, hey, like, I'm still trying to get this filter together. And I'm like, you're what? I'm like, you are not still at this place. Like, there's no way that you are still at the same place that you are at that I talked to you an hour and a half ago. I'm like, if you have a problem, I'm like, call me immediately and tell me, like, hey, I can't get this thing back together. Like, sometimes it's like, sometimes people here, that's just the stuff is so old, they'll like rig it so you'll have like weird closing pins and stuff where you're like, this isn't the original OEM thing, and that's stuff where it's like, it's super serious. So you gotta basically pull a full stop and say, hey, we need to get you the right parts for this or whatnot. But like I said, it's just it's more of time management, and then making sure that you're just super clear with everyone involved, with your team, on how much time they should be putting towards that. Like, I always tell my guys, like, if you're gonna service the pool and you got to do something, like, make it 2 separate things. Like, service the pool, take as much time as you need to service the pool, and then say, hey, I'm gonna take X amount of time and put towards this.
To be continued.